Hello everybody and welcome to this virtual open day at the University of Southampton, and in particular welcome to this presentation on the BSc in Population and Geography. My name is Ben Mason. I'm the undergraduate admissions tutor for Population and Geography, and I also have the very great fortune of teaching introductory statistics and research skills to population and geography students and various other students of the social sciences, a job which I'm lucky enough to love, actually. I'm going to talk to you briefly today about what population and geography actually is, and also give you a little flavour for what you can expect when you join the University of Southampton to study population and geography. So, I suppose the first question is, what is population and geography? What is it that we're fundamentally interested in? And I suppose what we're really interested in is population change. In a nutshell, population change. How it changes, why it changes, what are the implications of those changes. We're interested in migration and emigration. We're interested in fertility and mortality and public health and global health and how all of these issues interact in an incredibly complex way to produce this dynamic society that we experience on a day-to-day basis. That is fundamentally what gets us going. And there's never been a more exciting time to be studying these issues and population change. The plot that I'm showing you here now shows how the population has changed in various different regions of the world since 1950. So the various different colours represent different regions of the world, and the dotted lines represent our projections of population. But what we can see here is that in the year 1950, the total global population was somewhere in the neighbourhood of about 2.5 billion. And then in the space of just 70 years, there was a population explosion. By the time of 2019, the population was somewhere in the neighbourhood of, well, it was over 7 billion. And that is a huge population growth, fueled mainly by growth in Asia, represented by these two blue lines, this light and dark blue line, but also a little bit by increases in sub-Saharan Africa. But that is an extraordinary change in population, extraordinary population growth. In the 200,000 years that the human race has existed on this planet, it has never had to deal with such rapid population growth and the issues that come along with that, and the challenges that come along with that. But not only that, what this diagram also shows us is that if our projections are accurate, then in most regions of the world, we will expect the population to level off if it hasn't already. But in sub-Saharan Africa, we can expect the population to continue growing at least until the year 2100. And when you consider the background context of climate change and the climate crisis, then that population growth and the issues that come along with that become far more pressing. Let me give you an example a little bit closer to home. This diagram is known as a population pyramid, and it's a very quick and easy way of getting an idea of what the population is for any given age. So this particular population pyramid is for England and Wales for the year 2016 and the year 2041. That's projected in the year 2041. But you can see that up through the centre we have the ages up to the age 100, and then along the bottom we have the population count in thousands. On the left we have males, and on the right we have females. But to give you some idea about how to read and interpret this diagram, what you can see here is a little spike just here for both males and females. And what that spike represents is the post-war baby boom. So all of those people who were born in the years shortly following the end of the Second World War, by the year 2016, they're all approaching the age 70, there or thereabouts. Okay? But what's more important and what's more interesting about this diagram is this blue line here. And what this represents is our projection of what we expect the population pyramid to look like by the year 2041. And in particular, I want to draw your attention to this bulge because what this bulge is telling us is that by the year 2041 we will have an older population. There will be far more people in our population aged 70 and above than there currently are, and there are issues and challenges that come along with that. If, for example, we accept the idea that in any civilized society we have a moral obligation to take care of those in our society who are vulnerable, then an aging population begs the question of how are we going to be able to take care of our aging population, of the elderly in our population. If we don't have enough people who are of working age and are working and are contributing to the public purse, how are we going to afford the social care and the health care for our aging population? Do we have enough people who are suitably skilled to take care of our aging population? How do we deal with these issues? And we have to start thinking about that now, because training for these issues takes time. One thing we might consider is migration. If we don't have sufficient people in our own country who are of working age to contribute to the public purse, or people who are suitably skilled in our country to take care of our aging population, then maybe we invite people from other countries. But that comes with it its own implications and its own challenges. There are political, social and cultural implications to migration. Indeed, the most frequently cited reason for voting in favour of Brexit in the EU referendum was migration. That was the single biggest issue that caused people to vote in favour of Brexit. And whether or not our immigration policy had anything to do with our membership of the EU is neither here nor there. That's not the point. The point is that it created cultural changes that had an impact on people's lives, and that then had an impact on the political situation. So migration has implications that come with it as well, and these implications need to be understood. But the implications aren't just restricted to the UK. There are implications for the country of origin of these migrants as well. If, for example, we're attracting a whole load of nurses from the Philippines to come and help us working our NHS, then does that leave a skills gap in the Philippines? And if it does, how do they take care of their population? Are we leaving them with a skills deficit? And if we are, what are the implications? Well, one of the implications might be changes in the under 5 mortality rate. So the plot that I'm showing you here shows the under 5 mortality rate. That is the number of deaths of children under the age of 5 per 1,000 live births. And it's showing it you in various different regions of the world. So each of these little clusters represents a different region of the world. The different colours, the different shades, represent different years. So the lighter shades represents data from 1990, while the darkest shade represents data from 2018. But what this shows us is that in just about every single region on the planet, we have managed to halve the child mortality rate. That is an extraordinary achievement. In just one generation, we have managed to halve the child mortality rate in just about every single region of the planet. And that is incredible. That is extraordinary. But the point I'm trying to get to here is that these issues can only be investigated and can only gain ground when there are people like you coming through our universities to investigate them, to invest your time and energy and research these issues. And that is why population and geography is so important right now and so interesting right now. So, what about the population and geography degree? Well, it is similar in many ways to human geography. There's a lot of overlap between human geography and population and geography. By the way, if you happen to be interested in human geography, or indeed any geography degree, go and check out the geography degree options for the University of Southampton. There's a URL just there. Do go and have a look at them. So there is a lot of overlap between human geography and population and geography, but there are two key differences. The first is that we don't get you to do any physical geography unless you want to do it. You can always do it as an option. But you will find with human geography degrees that they are generally run by geography departments, and they therefore ask you to do some modules of physical geography. We don't do that. We don't ask you to do physical geography unless you particularly want to do it, because we're motivated by the human aspects. We're interested in the human characteristics of these issues. We're interested in the population change. The other significant difference is that we offer you quite a lot of quantitative training. We teach you the skills to be able to analyse data and be able to interpret the results appropriately. And that means that you will get a Bachelor of Science degree from Population and Geography as opposed to a Bachelor of Arts. And that goes a long way to your employability. We find that employers are increasingly looking for these skills. Population geography is also almost unique, actually, in the UK in the way that it balances the key and core concepts from demography and human geography. We draw from expertise from both demography and human geography, and you will find that some of your lectures will be given by experts from either of those departments. You will also have the option for studying abroad. There's a URL here if you'd like to find out more about that. But the University of Southampton has partnerships with a whole range of universities across the world. You could go and study abroad, for example, in Australia or China or the US, all over the world. Go and check out those opportunities if you're more interested using this URL. You also get the option for a year in employment as well. You don't have to do a year in employment, but we find that a lot of our students benefit from a year in employment because it's an additional skill that they can sell on their CV. So the way that it would work is that during your second year you would find a work placement guided by a central university department that can help you out with all of that. And then where you get to your third year, where you would ordinarily be doing your final year, what you would actually do is you would take that year out and you would then go and work in a work placement, and then you would rejoin the university in your fourth year to complete your degree. This is Charlotte Owen, this picture. She's one of our alumni, and she took a year out of her degree and gained professional experience working at the Food Standards Agency. You don't necessarily have to work in any field that is linked to population and geography. You could go and do whatever you wanted to do and whatever was of particular interest to you. As I say, there is a central university department that will help you through that process and getting a placement. We rely mainly on lectures to give you the fundamental ideas and fundamental concepts and to introduce you to those ideas and concepts. But what we frequently find is that it is in the seminars and tutorials where you really get to grips with it, where you really start to develop your learning, because that's where you discuss the issues, that's where you investigate the issues, not only with other people from population and geography, but because of the nature of population and geography, you will discuss those issues with people who have quite a different view of the world and from other disciplines. We also offer drop-in sessions and computer workshops, and there's obviously independent learning as well. But the other thing that you will do is field work. So in your second year, we will take you on a field trip where you will get to work with people who are actively engaged in social research. They are professionals who are working in a day-to-day capacity doing live field research. That in itself is a very, very valuable experience for our students. But more importantly than that, you will also be introduced to people who are living the issues that you are learning about in the classroom. It's one thing learning about the issues in a very sort of clinical and clean way in the classroom, but on the field trip you will get introduced to people who have to live those issues on a daily basis. And that gives you a whole new perspective on those issues. It gives you a much better understanding of the human implications of those issues. So that's your second year field trip. Currently we are revising how we do the field trip. because of COVID and also because of the climate crisis. But in previous years, we have been to Ghana and India and South Africa, just to give you a bit of a flavour for the field trip. The assessment on population and geography varies between coursework and presentations and exams. The exact balance of those assessment techniques will depend to some extent upon the optional modules that you choose. But the other thing that you will find as well on population and geography is that we have a very culturally and professionally diverse student population. The University of Southampton attracts a lot of students from other countries, so you get that cultural diversity from the student body. But on population and geography in particular, because you find yourself sharing some of your lectures with students from other disciplines, you will get exposed to other views of the world that you might not otherwise have been exposed to, which means that you get a much more rounded and much more diverse discussion in your tutorials and in your seminars. So that's always worth bearing in mind. So this slide gives you some idea of the kind of structure of the degree programme. You will see here that you will study 6 core and compulsory modules in your first and second year. These blue ones represent the modules which are more guided towards demography and population. The purple ones represent modules which are more about skills and methods, and these lime green ones, they are more guided towards the human geography side of things. So in your first and second year, you will do 6 core and compulsory modules plus 2 options. In your final year, in year 3, you will do 2 core and compulsory modules plus 5 options. So it is in your final year that you will really get to customise your degree to whatever it is that really interests you. You get to go away and choose the options that really get you going. The other point is the dissertation project as well in your final year. So the dissertation project is an opportunity for you to do your own research. So whatever it is that interests you, whatever it is that gets you going, whatever it is that you really want to investigate further, you get to do it in your dissertation project, where you get to apply all of the skills that you have learned in the preceding 2 years. You get to apply them on your dissertation project and do your own research. You will be given a dissertation supervisor who can guide you through the process, but it remains your own work, and then you get to write up your results and conclusions in your dissertation project, and that forms the lion's share of your final year work. If you want more information, by the way, about any of these modules, do go have a look at this URL here. You will find much more information about all of these modules and indeed of the programme structure more generally. So one of the things that we find with our students on population and geography is that most of them haven't done any maths since their GCSEs. And so for a lot of them, we find that the data analysis aspects of the degree programme is the source of some anxiety. And that's understandable. The truth is, you needn't be worried about that. And I know that's very, very easy for me to say, but we will start you off from the very fundamentals. So in your very first data analysis lectures in your first year, you will be taught how to add and subtract and multiply and divide, and how to do those operations in the correct order. We will remind you how to use a calculator, for example. And then from those very basic concepts, we will build upon that in each of your years until in your final year you are doing some quite advanced data analysis methods. So don't let your absence of maths qualifications put you off population and geography. The other point as well about the quantitative aspects of the degree is that it also helps your employment prospects. We are finding increasingly that employers are looking for the analysis skills that you will gain from population and geography more and more, particularly in this world of big data where everything we do is being recorded somewhere. So the skills that you will gain from population and geography will improve your employment prospects. And in fact, from the 2017-2018 Graduate Outcomes Survey, 100% of our population and geography graduates are either employed or in further study just 6 months after graduation. So you can see, based on that, that the quantitative analysis skills do make you a more employable graduate. So, where do our graduates end up after graduation? Well, we have very, very strong links with the Office for National Statistics. They tend to come looking for our graduates precisely because of this balance that our graduates have, where they not only understand the issues, but they also understand the methods of how to research those issues and the data analysis skills. And that's a very attractive prospect for the Office of National Statistics. So we have very strong links with the Office of National Statistics. We have a lot of our graduates go to the Office of National Statistics. But there are other areas of the public sector where our graduates go as well. We've had graduates, for example, go to the Department for Work and Pensions and the Department for International Development, and there are local councils and central government departments and the civil service, all of whom are interested in being able to analyse social data. But we've also got some of our graduates who have moved into the private sector, again building upon these analysis skills that you get from population and geography. We've had students go into market research, insurance and accountancy and data science. Data science is a particularly growing field at the moment. We've had students who go into planning, design and economics and consultancy. And then, of course, there are international agencies as well. So there are various NGOs and charities who are actively engaged in social research who are also interested in the skills that you would gain from population and geography. You could, for example, find yourself starting out on a career that ends up working for the World Health Organization, for example, or the UN, for example. But then, of course, there are other areas. We've had other graduates who have gone into areas that are not related to population geography at all. For example, we've had a number of students who have ended up going to teach English in China following their degrees. The point is that in terms of employability, population and geography keeps doors open for you and keeps your options open. There is also, of course, obviously further study. A lot of our graduates do opt to go on and do master's degrees, and indeed a few have gone on to do PhDs. So there are lots of options there. This is Parth. He's currently a second year student going into his third year, and this quote reads, "I chose to come to Southampton because the staff cared about what you thought and not about league tables or rankings. Demography is only offered as an undergraduate at Southampton, and I wanted to be part of a dynamic, world-leading environment." Parth, by the way, recently won an award for his work with the Student Union, and I can assure you, if you're watching this, Parth, congratulations, well done. Very well deserved award as well. But more importantly, Parth epitomises what we're trying to achieve in our department. When you come to join population and geography, you are joining our department, and we want you to be actively engaged in the department. And that's what Parth has done. That's what Parth represents to us. We want you to come and knock on our door and discuss issues with us. We want you to share your passions with us. We want you to get involved. We want you to come to seminars. We want you to be actively engaged in the department, because that creates a vibrant learning environment, and that's what we want. We feed off your passions. We love that. Come and ask us questions. Come and discuss issues with us. We want you to get involved. We want that involvement. This is another of our students. This is Rachel. She's third year. And I knew that I was most interested in the demography side of geography. Unlike almost all universities in the UK, Southampton offers the chance to specialise in demography at degree level. My unique course really attracted me to Southampton, and when I visited for an open day, I knew I would be very happy here. It is lovely to hear from students who have enjoyed their time at university at Southampton, especially if they've been on population and geography. But what attracted Rachel to population and geography was her specific interest in human geography. She knew right from the beginning that she was more interested in human geography than she was in physical geography, and so it was the human geography characteristics in population and geography that draws her to this degree programme. So I think that just about wraps it up for what I wanted to go over. If you have any questions, then please do join us on our chats. We have the Unibuddy student chats, as well as the staff available for live chats. The only other thing that I want to draw your attention to is that if you don't want to join us on the chats, do please contact me. That's my email address there. I love hearing from prospective students. I'm perfectly happy to answer your questions, so do please drop the questions down to me. Always ask questions. Always ask questions. Now and forevermore, ask questions. So important. The other thing I'd like to draw your attention to is this URL here. It's a YouTube video done by one of my colleagues, Professor Brianna Harris. And that talks about looking at COVID-19 through the lens of demography. Some really interesting stuff there, so I urge you to go and check that out. I believe there is a link to it on the Open Day website, but if not, just use this URL and it will get you there. Thank you very much for your attention. I really look forward to chatting to you and hopefully meeting you over the course of the next year or two. Thank you very much.